Welcome to the Complete Story series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you, giving weird voices to the characters and turning it into a motion movie, where I get to pretend I'm giving you a cartoon. Today, we're going to be bringing you the beginning of the new Avengers team. They are finally together again, and this is my favorite incarnation of the Avengers in a very long time. So today we're going to bring you issues 1 through 3, and I'll explain what's happening next at the end of the video. Enjoy! 1 million years ago, 7 heroes were tasked to save the Earth from ultimate destruction. Agamotto, the first Sorcerer Supreme, Starbrand, the Cosmic Hulk, the Rider, the Panther, Iron Fist, Phoenix, and they were all led by the All-Father, Odin of Borson. Odin lifts his mug shouting, "Here's to all endings and to good deaths for us all." And Phoenix asks, "Is this really the time for drinking?" Odin wipes his mouth and he says, "I imagine your 2 eyes work better than my 1, in which case 'tis a very good time." The Rider yells, "We've killed one of these things before. The spirit of vengeance does not fear, neither does his rider." Agamotto tells him, "The one that we fought was weakened, infected with something. Even the Sorcerer Supreme still cannot explain. These new ones are not. They know what was done to their compatriot." Odin goes back to fill his mug and Phoenix asks, "Is the vaulted Allfather of Asgard not even going to fight?" Odin turns back shouting, "Odin Borson has never walked away from a fight in his entire immortal life. I, woman, I shall fight. Till I have drenched the battlefield with every last drop of my holy blood, I shall fight. And then, once it's all laid to waste, my spirit will find yours in the void, and we will make love in the ashes of affinity for 1 billion years. We will build creation again." Phoenix leans in, stating that is a fine idea, or perhaps they'll simply kill everything that dares stand in their way. Be it a man or god or giants from the stars, they will kill it with fire. As Phoenix flies into battle, Odin takes Mjolnir and sighs, stating, "Gods, I love that woman. Come, Mjolnir. Ragnarok awaits." The Rider hops on his mammoth, laughing, shouting, "Hiya! We ride!" And thus, the first and the last fight with the first celestial host had begun. Now, in the current day, Thor, Tony Stark, and Steve Rogers toast, with Steve stating, "To the good old days, to the Avengers." Tony asks, "Really? We couldn't even get through 1 drink before you mentioned the A word?" Thor slams his mug down, stating, "I was already through with my drink. Bartender, another!" Steve says, "I don't know. It feels like it's been 1 million years since I've said it. Or more than that, felt it." Tony begins to play with his tiny umbrella, telling him, "I'm just happy to feel anything at all, because I was in a coma and all." Steve says, "I get it. You're in a coma for what, a few weeks? Try being trapped in ice for the first 40 Super Bowls." Thor sighs, telling him, "I once broke into my father's private cask house, and I drank myself into a stupor that lasted 9 moon turns. I thought about doing it again, but every time I reach for a Mjolnir, that isn't there. And it's not like I could even lift it if it were." Tony sits back, telling him, "We make quite a trio. Hydra Cap, Coma Tony, and Unworthy Thor." Steve looks at Tony and tells him, "You know what we need? We gotta put it all back together." Tony says, "Look, we aren't as special as we once were. I could list 20 names of people that are better suited for this sort of thing at this point." Thor slams his mug down again, telling him, "As the stars are my witness, it must be us. It needs to be us. Now more than ever. We 3 need one another, and we cannot run from that." Tony snaps his umbrella, yelling, "What? Are we just gonna sit around and wait for a startling new calamity to suddenly..." Just then, Tony's AI program, Motherboard, radios in that they're sorry to be that AI, but his satellites are detecting multiple energy fluctuations in a near-Earth orbit. Massive fluctuations. Ludicrously massive, actually. All of unknown origin. Steve grabs his shield and he says, "That settles it. Avengers, But Tony cuts him off, telling him, "If you say those words, you're picking up Thor's tab." "All right. Which way, Motherboard?" Motherboard says roughly 200 miles straight up. Meanwhile, 200 miles straight down, Doctor Strange follows closely behind T'Challa, the Black Panther, stating that this is an impressive dig site. "But I was hoping that I was not summoned with archaeology in mind." T'Challa tells him that it is not the ancient remains in these caves that he felt warranted his attention. It's the fresh ones. Doctor Strange shines his light on the ground to see a decomposing body and says, "Ah, yes, I see it now." T'Challa points his light onto a wall with crude carving, stating that this is what these archaeologists discovered, emitting an incredible amount of cosmic radiation. It burned them alive, and then somehow completely disappeared. That's what I need you for. Doctor Strange looks at the markings, all symbolizing the emblems of the current age heroes, stating, "By the hoary host of Hoggoth, The magic is here. It was Agamotto. The spells here are ancient, and as for the thing that they are meant to guard, it is quite large, something alive. Its fear still stains the walls. T'Challa focuses his light at one of the holes in the walls, stating that he agrees that whatever it was massive, at least 600 meters long by his estimates. So the question then becomes, where did it go? I sent a probe down here 4 hours ago. It was 200 miles deep and it was still going when it became inoperable. The deeper that we go, the closer we are to finding those answers. Doctor Strange tells him, I've seen this movie before. This is one of those things that blows up at our faces if we go blundering in. We need to call the Avengers on this. T'Challa tells him that there are no Avengers. The symbols on the wall date back to the Stone Age. Both of theirs are among them. Whatever is happening, they're already involved. T'Challa then jumps into one of the holes, stating, see you down below. Doctor Strange sighs as he phases through the ground, stating, oh, that's just great. If anyone needs me, I'll be at the center of the Earth. Also, at this time, up in space, Alpha Flight begins their investigation of the anomalies appearing in space that Motherboard detected. As Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, flies close to one, she begins to notice something and tells the station to sound every global alarm that they have. And that's when a giant hand reaches out to grab her. Back on Earth, Motherboard tells Tony, Steve, and Thor that the anomalies in orbit are suddenly spiking. They look very much like teleportation nexuses. Tony tells them, okay, short them out. Use every Stark satellite and disruptor drone that we've got up there, and Motherboard says that they've already tried that. Whatever is causing this is technology far beyond anything that they have ever encountered. Steve tells her, all right, then we're gonna have to head up there. Tony yells, the Quinjet is not capable of space travel. And just then, a blue light begins to shine in the sky, and Tony says, it doesn't matter, whatever it is, it's coming down to us. Back at the Earth's core, Doctor Strange appears through the ceiling, stating that if it wasn't for his magic, the pressure would be crushing him into a puddle of goo. How are you not? Actually, never mind, I nearly forgot. You're the Black Panther. T'Challa looks around at the hundreds of green egg sacs, stating that these things are not of this world, no life signs, but their reading is dormant. Back up on the surface in East LA, Robbie Reyes looks closely at the hood of his Hellcharger, stating that he hasn't slept in 3 days. You know, he might have never gotten into this whole thing if he had driven a Pinto or something. As Robbie gets ready to climb back inside of his car, he feels a rumble and a hole in the ground begins to open. Large green grubs begin to crawl out, and Robbie begins to shout, holy! If they're from hell to repossess the car, go right ahead. But if you think you're gonna come here and lay a hand or claw or whatever on my family, then you're gonna have some hell of your own to pay. Back in New York along the Hudson, Tony flies over a giant celestial body asking, so why is the body of the ancient star-spawned supergiants who judge and destroy entire worlds here? Carol pulls herself out from under part of the celestial body, stating, hey there, looks like I picked a good time to get the band back together, Tony. As everyone runs over, Tony asks, did you just kill that thing? And Carol tells him, no, it was dead when it came out of the portal. All I did was keep it from landing on Times Square. There's no time to stand around though. There's dozens more falling from the sky and we need to stop them all. All across the world, the bodies of dead Celestials begin to fall from space, destroying everything that they touch. But while some heroes try to figure out what's going on, others find themselves fighting against the swarm of newly hatched bugs. As Tony begins to suit up, he asks one mind-boggling question. If the Celestials are all powerful, then what the hell is strong enough to kill them? As Thor shoots off into the sky, he bounces off of something and Steve tells him, I'm pretty sure that question just got answered. Enter the Celestials, known as the final host. Tony asks Steve if there's anything else he'd like to add before they do this, and Steve pulls his mask down, telling him, only one thing comes to mind. Tony sighs, telling him, fine, just say it so we can get to work. Steve grabs his shield and he stares into the sky, shouting, Avengers Assemble! Over at the side of the celestial body, a perfectly calm Jennifer Walter stops her job, telling herself that she really should walk away from this. This is totally out of her pay grade, and it won't be good for her, delicate treatment right now. Except, something is drawing her to it. As she looks up, she sees several bugs crawling out, and she says, yep, that settles it. She's an idiot. She runs away yelling for everyone to get away, but a second later, she begins to Hulk out, shouting, Hulk squish! Just then, the hand of a Celestial raises and slams back down. Jennifer looks over, stating, you not dead? Yes, S and Hulk here. Hear voice and head, but Hulk not understand. What is cure? Cure for what? But before she can finish the thought, she suddenly disappears. Out on the highway, Robbie Reyes is racing towards the fallen body, stating, for months, my car wouldn't shut the hell up. But now there's a giant spaceman falling from the sky and crazy super roaches trying to eat my bones, and whoa! He slams the brakes as he stops just before seeing Jennifer Walters appearing, stating, okay, sure, why not? Back in New York, Tony hits the final host with another repulsor blast, and Motherboard tells him that his efforts appear to be remarkably unsuccessful. So he begins to yell, that's not true! I'm pretty sure I made it blink! the final host smacks Thor away, and Carol catches him asking, "Did anyone misplace a god?" As Thor flies back into the fight, Carol goes on stating, "We've done a pretty good job, but I've dealt with Celestials before and lived to fill out the paperwork." Just then there's a loud thoom as a pod lands in front of her. She reaches in, pulling out several small devices, stating hopefully these Omega-level warp grenades attuned to the coordinates of the sun, they'll do the trick. But back over with Robbie Reyes, he's beginning to realize that making his car hit a hulked out Jennifer Walters is a very, very bad idea, because now he's dealing with She-Hulk. Back with Tony and Carol, they get ready to set off the grenades on the final host when they see Steve and the Quinjet distracting them. One of the hosts reaches out and begins to dismantle the ship, electrocuting Steve in the process. Everyone runs in to try and save him, but out of nowhere, the Celestial that teleported Jennifer away gets up and punches one of the final hosts. Now, if you think back to the whole Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes moment with She-Hulk, you would assume that he's probably getting beat senselessly by Jennifer Walters. And you'd be right. Just as Robbie thinks that he has her contained, the two begin to feel a rumble, and the ground splits open, just as it did in front of Robbie's house. Robbie tells Jennifer that he knows that she probably doesn't want a friend right now, but by the looks of these bugs, we might want to reconsider our actual friendship for a bit. However, back in New York, the Celestial that attempted to save Steve finds himself with his neck at the end of a scythe held by the final host. Steve shouts to Carol to use the grenades, send him off with those things, and she tells him, "We're gonna have to get him clear before," but before she could finish, her and the others are hit with a paralyzing blast and a familiar voice calls out to them. Loki floats down stating, "I see you have met my new friends, the final host. Don't mind me though, I'm just here to lend a helping hand as we avenge the greatest wrong of all time, and to correct the grievous mistake made 1 million years ago. There will be salvation through global extinction, and it begins now." But while Loki has now made his presence known, back on the highway, Robbie Reyes and Jennifer finish off the last of the bugs, with Robbie seeing Jennifer isn't really backing down. He tells her, "Look, we just killed a bunch of giant roaches together. That means we're friends now, and friends don't go smashing each other, right?" She begins to feel something calling out to her, and she yells, "Voice in head won't shut up. Stupid beauty, dead space giant. Stupid voice say, arr." She begins to lift both her arms above her head, and then she slams them into the ground, creating a giant hole, shouting, "Go to hell!" As Robbie watches, he sighs, stating that the scariest part about this whole thing, that she seems to know more about what's going on than him. That was either her telling him off or inviting him along. Why does he feel like he's going to get punched a lot along the way? Well, here I go. Back in New York, Tony sighs, telling everyone, "You know, things just keep getting better." Thor yells to Loki, asking, "What have you done?" And Loki tells him, "Oh, you can't blame me for all of this. I'm merely a facilitator. This is all the handiwork of the final host." And this moment of cleansing has been unavoidable for a very long time, since the dawn of the disease called man. I'm kind of surprised the beloved Allfather Odin never told you, brother. Perhaps Loki isn't the only god of lies. By the way, I'm going to be taking those warp grenades if you don't mind. Thor struggles to move, yelling, "I will slay you for this, 1,000 times over." And Loki tells him, "Oh, yeah, I'm sure you will. You're the Avengers after all." But believe me, when the final hosts are finished here, there will be nothing left of this world to avenge. Loki begins to bring the warp grenades closer, with Steve telling him that he has a better idea, and he manages to reach for his shield, throwing it out. Before Loki could get his hands on the grenades, Steve tells everyone that he'll see them in the stars, and the shield detonates the warp grenades. In a flash, Steve, Loki, and the final host all disappear, with Thor asking, "Where did they go?" Carol tells him that if the warp grenades worked like they should, they just popped into the sun. Down at the center of the Earth, though, if you remember, we have Doctor Strange and T'Challa down there, fighting back the unending swarm of bugs, with Doctor Strange asking, "Is it me or are these things getting stronger?" T'Challa telling him, "It's not just you. Their power levels are rapidly expanding. They've tapped into a new energy source and they're feeding on something. This is a lost cause, so use that magic to get us out of here. I'll hold them all off as long as I can." Doctor Strange tells him, "You know I'm not going to leave you behind, so you better figure out a better..." But just then, the cave begins to tremble and Doctor Strange shouts, "You know what? I'm taking it back. I'm definitely leaving you." T'Challa says, "Wait, what is that sound?" A few seconds later, the roof of the cave splits open, with Ghost Rider and She-Hulk coming barreling in. Robbie says, "Hey, we're the good guys." Maybe. Elsewhere, Steve slowly begins to wake up, and as he looks around, he asks what's happening. Loki tells him, "Wake up, you're gonna want to see this. It's not every day that you get to see a star from the inside." Steve says, "Wait, we're inside of the sun? How?" And Loki says, "Yes, well, you're quite welcome for being saved. Lucky for you, it's quite difficult to murder a sorcerer of my caliber. Not that there are many other sorcerers of my caliber." Steve throws his shield and he yells into a radio to hit the sun with everything they've got. But Loki deflects the throw, telling him, "Come on, We don't have time for that. Do you really want to render unconscious the only god who's currently keeping you alive? Besides, there's something I want to show you. Steve struggles to break free from Loki's grasp, telling him, it doesn't matter what happens to me. The Avengers won't stop fighting. And Loki asks, fighting? You call what happened to Midgard fighting? I'm sorry to disappoint, but there's going to be no battle between the Avengers and the final host. Down on Earth, Carol is listening in on the radio, and she says, he's alive. Alpha Flight confirmed it. Tony tells her, of course he made it. That old man will outlive all of us. Carol says, yeah, well, all the others are alive too. Tony steps up shouting, this is all Alpha Flight's fault. This is exactly the sort of cosmic catastrophe that you're supposed to stop, Captain Marvel. Carol yells back, we will stop it. Meanwhile, feel free to stay out of the way. But as the two begin to go back and forth, everyone can hear the sound of screeching tires. Then Robbie crashes into a building asking, so there may be a very angry Hulk in the trunk. Doctor Strange tells Robbie that he has some nice driving, and sorry about throwing up so many times. T'Challa jumps out of the car stating, look, there's more going on than all of you realize. We need all hands on deck. We need the Avengers. Over in the North Pole, the final host creating the bug stands there, and Loki says, you know, it's almost beautiful, in a disgusting sort of way. Steve tells him, whatever you're playing here, there's still time to change the course. Help us stop this. We know that there's a decent god hiding in there. Loki sighs. You see, Midgard is such a simple place, isn't it? Of course it is. You're a soldier who came of age defending the world from Nazis. Where I'm older than your human race's capacity for walking upright. And with that sort of age comes a unique perspective. I have something far beyond your petty concepts of good and evil. But if you insist on resorting to trite labels, then believe it or not, I'm the good guy here. Steve tells him the Nazis thought they were the good guys too, even when they slaughtered millions. Loki points at one of the hosts stating, if his brand could even withstand communicating with a Celestial, then perhaps you could ask this fellow what he thinks. The Celestials came to this world 1,000,000 years ago, in a state of distress, desperately in need of assistance. Instead, it was assaulted by your father and the primordial minions of Earth. Steve shouts, the Celestials didn't save anything. They've been corrupted, driven mad. They murdered their own kind. Loki says, yes, the treatments may seem unconventional, but we do expect a full recovery. If you don't believe me, you can visit the patient. The two descend into a hole left by the host. Steve asks, where are we going? And Loki tells him to the root of the infection, an infection as old as time. Back on the surface, Tony gathers everyone around and he says that he's going to recap all of this to make sure that he's not crazy. The Earth is infested with giant bugs, covered with dead Celestials, and somewhere out there, Loki and his unstoppable new pals, the final host, are up to something. Likely something that'll murder us all. Did I miss anything here? Jennifer grunts and Tony says, oh right, we also have a raging Hulk here. That's sure to help us get a handle on things. T'Challa picks up one of the dead bugs, stating that he's been in contact with Captain Britain and the People's Defense Force in China. There are heroes all over the world already dealing with the destruction caused by the Celestials. They need to focus on preventing whatever is coming next. And Carol says that's right. That's why T'Challa and herself are heading to Alpha Flight Station to find out what the hell these bugs are. Tony shouts, that's just great. We're gonna do this split up into smaller teams thing? Good. That's a solid, time-honored strategy. Just then, there's a crack of thunder, and as Tony looks back, he notices Thor gone, along with Jennifer. Tony asks, did Thor just steal our Hulk? Is that good or bad? And Doctor Strange says, well, it's definitely bad for someone. Moments later, in old Asgard, Thor begins to walk forward, telling Jennifer, let me do the talking, and don't start smashing unless I do. Where are you, Odin? Odin leans up from his throne, and he says he's too old to be hiding. What is it that you seek? Thor tells him, the truth. For once, you're gonna give it to me whether you damn well like it or not. Back down in the North Pole, Loki tells Steve to behold the root of the great infection, the reason that this world must die. Behold the progenitor, the father of the Avengers, the father of them all. And there you have it, the Avengers have assembled! Now, funny side note just for you guys. When I first did the line for that, it was my first video in a long time because we took a little bit of a break. And I was like, Avengers Assemble! It came out just like that. Total voice crack and everything. So I had to redo the line because having Captain America go, Avengers Assemble! Doesn't sound right, but Avengers Assemble! That's much better, isn't it? Anyway, I probably cracked the mic right there. But if you want to know how we're going to handle this, we're doing it much like our Justice League series and Titans series. You see, the story is broken up into 3 to 4 issue storylines with cliffhangers, and they just keep going. There is some overall resolution, but there's a whole bunch of other things happening, and I'm giving it to you in breaking it down into basically 2 to 3 issue storylines so that you can keep up to date as to what's going on and subscribe so that you can watch it almost like a TV show. So Justice League, Avengers, and Titans are all being handled handled this way, and we brought you issues 1 through 3. See, my voice is going already. I can't even assemble the Avengers anymore. So, make sure you give this video a like if you want more Avengers, you want more of this team. And just real quick, let me know in the comments down below, isn't it freaking awesome that Ghost Rider's on the team? Like, what? Yes! Awesome! I'll see you next time right here.